The Eagles made a ton of history last season, and they have a chance to do it yet again this upcoming year. But a couple things have to go right in order for them to do so. And today, we're going to take a look at some of the numbers from other previous repeat champs and talk about whether it is possible for the Birds to get it done yet again. And I actually think that there is one main key difference from this Eagles team compared to the rest. We'll get into all of it and more, but welcome in to A to Z Philly. I'm RB, and ladies and gentlemen, it is the end of June. We are dead in the middle of the offseason. Nothing going on right now. 1 month away from training camp. So we're trying to fill the time, and I was thinking about something related to this Eagles team, their chances of repeating. Could they actually make history again? And what do you know? I came across an article talking about the exact same thing. So I feel like most Eagles fans are kind of in no man's land right now. And we're going to get into it and break it all down. But just wanted to let y'all know, if you haven't checked it out yet, we did an exclusive interview with Dallas Goedert last week. So make sure you go check that out right here on our YouTube channel. Shout out to the Super Bowl champ, tight end one, Dallas Goedert. We're actually going to talk about him a little bit today. But let's talk about this Eagles squad. And we'll start off by looking at the other teams that have won the Super Bowl back-to-back. So how many teams have done it? 9. It's actually 8, but the Steelers did it twice. So the Packers, the Dolphins, the Steelers, the Niners, Cowboys, Broncos, Patriots, and Chiefs. And as we know, the Chiefs were oh so close to making even more history, becoming the first team to three-peat, until the Eagles devoured their dreams on the biggest stage. Not only beat them, but beat them down. So we know how hard it is. We know what it takes, right? A lot of luck, a lot of talent, a lot of things going your way. And obviously, you got to get hot at the right time. But I was thinking about this, and there's one main key difference with the Eagles compared to the rest of these teams. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've watched all these teams in real time. You know, I wasn't old enough to see the Packers and the Dolphins and the Steelers, but when you go back and you read about these teams and what it took and how different the game was, the Eagles have youth on their side. They have cap logistics. The game is completely different now. You look at the Chiefs, who even got back to the Super Bowl again. They were absolutely decimated all season with injuries. That shows how great they are, Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid. But let me tell you something, man. Things got to go your way. And I feel like the way the Eagles are strategizing with team building now is actually kind of setting up the dominoes perfectly if everything else goes right. So we'll get into that, but I came across this article on NJ.com, and I want to know what y'all think about this, because shout out to, who was it? Bob Brookover, who dropped an article on NJ.com talking about the numbers, right? Let's look at it from an analytics standpoint, kind of, sort of. He talks about Nick Sirianni, and he talks about Jalen Hurts and how they have been talking to professional athletes and coaches who have had sustained success, who have won multiple championships, and talked about what it needed, right? And Nick Sirianni said that there are two sides of it. The main thing is you're going to have to be able to work extremely hard, and you're going to have to be able to overcome adversity. You have to be right in the moment of where you are. I think that's a great way to approach and head into this season. Can't think about last year. Can't think about the playoffs. Can't think about this upcoming Super Bowl. You have to take it 1 week at a time. We saw the Eagles try to do that, last year, 2023, and you saw what happened, right? They got ahead of themselves. They went 10-1, then they imploded. It's really about staying in the moment. They started 2-2 last year. They looked pretty mediocre. They took the time to reset during the bye week, and then they exploded and barely lost the rest of the season. They probably shouldn't have if Jalen Hurts did not go down that one game. So I think that's a great mentality. And in terms of some of these other teams, what have they done? What are the main indicators for the Eagles to be able to repeat as Super Bowl champs? So Bob says this here: of the 9 teams that have won back-to-back Super Bowls, 7 of them have finished in the top 10 in points allowed, yards allowed, points scored, and total yards. Those 4 categories. That is 77.8% of the repeat champs. So 7 out of 9 have been top 10 in these 4 categories. The Eagles this past year finished second in points allowed, first in yards allowed, seventh in points scored, and eighth in total yards. The other repeat Super Bowl champs to do this, to finish the top 10 in all four, the Packers, Dolphins, 74 Steelers, 78 Steelers, 88 Niners, 92 Cowboys, and 97 Broncos. The most impressive was the Dolphins, who was first in all four categories, which is crazy. The unbeaten Dolphins. And the exceptions, the two teams that didn't do it were the 03 Patriots and the 22 Chiefs. So an argument could be made that all Super Bowl champs are probably really good on offense and defense. Yeah, that's kind of common sense, right? But it gets a little bit more interesting. Pay attention. Stay up with me here. A total of 30 out of the 59 Super Bowl winners have finished in the top 10 in all of those four categories. Comes out to 51% almost. But 14 of the 30 are accounted for by the repeat champion. So not a huge variance of teams. You know, the teams that repeated were all top 10 in those four. The 7 that we mentioned, the only repeat winners not top 10 in all four were the 98 Broncos and the 2023 Chiefs. Andy Reid's Chiefs were a particularly interesting case study because they had the number one offense in points scored and total yards when they beat the Eagles back in 2022, but they were 16th in points allowed and 11th in yards allowed. So it's not a guarantee, right? Like you have to finish in the top 10 in those four categories for the most part. There could be a few exceptions, but it's not that easy. You have to have the luck. You have to have the talent. You need to be able to make it through a season and not have drama, right? Like there's so many different dominoes. And that is where I come in here with the one key difference from the rest of the repeat champions to the Philadelphia Eagles. Howie Roseman is looking into the future. Now, it could come around to bite him, but the extensions that have been signed this offseason, the one-year patch-it-up deals, being able to retain most of the players that won and contributed to this past Super Bowl is exceptional. You go back and you think about some of these other teams, right? The Packers and the Steelers and the Cowboys and the Niners, all those teams, the game was different, right? Like guys weren't getting paid this much money. Guys didn't want to take the first chance to leave and take the high road and go elsewhere and just, settle for the rest of their career. Now it's different. Guys are willing to take that big payday. So that's why the Chiefs haven't been able to retain everybody. And that just kind of goes to show how great they've been. The fact they've been able to have sustained dominance, that shows how good Mahomes and Reid are. But when it comes to the Eagles, Howie took a different approach, still has a lot of draft capital to build with. I'm not going to go one by one through the roster. We've done that a lot of times already, but they had one of the youngest defenses. They have a defensive coordinator who's older, who doesn't want to go anywhere else, who has a system built now where you can kind of just plug and play some of these young guys on rookie contracts. The whole offense is glued together. The whole core's back. And if your offensive line can hold up and stay healthy, and Tyler Steen can step in and get a job done, then Saquon Barkley's in a really good spot. And no offense to Miles Sanders in 22, right? The Eagles started to really lean into that run game back in the middle of 2021, led into 2022. But Miles Sanders is not Saquon Barkley, who's probably one of the greatest running backs of all time. And although Saquon had 400 carries or close to it, he still feels fresh. He's ready to go. So I think the Eagles are built perfectly. I think they're already going to be way ahead of the curve in terms of knowing the tendencies of the team, how they want to play, things they need to do, things they need to adjust week to week. And they've been through the tough times. And when you get to the playoffs and the bright lights are on, these young players are not going to have that moment of, whoa, I'm inexperienced. I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to say, oh yeah, we were in that situation last year and we know what it takes. We can stay calm. We can make it through this. Now, again, all these other factors creep in. Can they stay healthy? Can guys stay on par? No drama, no Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, whatever is drama. They really need to stay hungry, I would say. But if they do that, I mean, they have a really good shot. Further proof that finishing in the top 10 in those categories is proof of greatness can be found in just how good some of the teams that didn't repeat were. Only 4 Super Bowl champions in this century have finished in the top 10 in points scored, yards, points allowed, and yards allowed, and the Eagles have done it twice. At the end of the day, I think the Eagles are positioned perfectly, not even just this next year, maybe the year after that, right? They're going to have to pay a lot of these young guys, but that's the beauty of what Howie Roseman has done. It's not like some of these other repeat champs where, you know, they're going to run out of cap space and guys are going to have to leave, because they have already done an excellent job looking ahead, foreshadowing, and setting up moves and kind of putting the pieces of the plan into place. So give me your thoughts down below. Do you think the Eagles have a good shot to repeat in 2025? Could they end up becoming a dynasty? Give me your thoughts down below. As always, appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.